You're listening to Tim Conway Jr. on demand from KFI AM 640.
It is the Conway Show, and Mark Thompson stays with us, and Mo Kelly joins us. Nice to see you, buddy.
Good to see you, brother.
Yeah, look at you. You're really into politics. So is Mark Thompson. Me, not so much, but they have me here anyway. What the hell? All right, Corbin Carson is with us. He's checking out congressional races in Orange County, and we got the latest. Corbin Carson, you're on KFI. How you, bub?
Good. You know, Republicans and Democrats both have about 200 seats that are safe this election as far as who will control Congress. And Republicans hold about 220. They have they have the majority, and then 212 to the Democrats. There are two key congressional races in Southern California that could decide which party controls the House. I talked to all four of the candidates. We'll hear about them tonight. The first is the 45th district, which includes Cerritos, Buena Park, Garden Grove, that sort of area. That seat is currently held by Congresswoman Michelle Steele. She's in a tight race with Democrat Derek Tran. I'm at the Derek Tran watch party. I caught up with him this week. He said not a whole lot is starting here at the watch party, but I caught up with him about the importance of what this race means to Democrats.
This is the closest race in the country. Every single poll has us neck and neck. Republicans control the House by just 4 seats. So it's not just about electing me, but it's the difference between a Republican Congress and a Democratic Congress, a Speaker Johnson or a Speaker Jeffries, another January 6th, or protecting our democracy.
And as you can imagine, Congresswoman Steele is saying the same thing. I asked her that, and she says Republicans have to win this.
We have a very unique perspective nationally because we understand that what it's like living in a state with high taxes, personal income tax 13.3%, and spend policies and how that's failing California families. And our families are really suffering with the high inflation rate and gas prices. And I think that's the reason that we are working really hard to get reelected.
Now, guys, the other close seat is the 47th district. That includes Newport Beach, Lake Forest, further south, Orange County, Irvine. That seat is vacated by Democratic Congresswoman Katie Porter and is now in a tight heat between former Republican Assemblyman Scott Baugh and Democratic Senator Dave Min. Here's Baugh on how important this district is for Republicans.
We have
that's Steele trying to steal some more airtime. Here's Baugh.
Gerrymandering throughout the entire country has left only about 20 seats that are up for grabs. The rest of the seats are relatively safe, either Republican or Democrat. And this is one of 4 open seats in the entire country where there's no incumbent running for re-election in a purple district that is winnable. As you know, I ran last time and got really close, notwithstanding being outspent 9-1. This time I'm still being outspent, but it's closer to 3-1, so it's more of a fair fight. But it's an important seat for our party because we want to make sure that we maintain control of Congress and see if we can grow it a little bit.
And then Corbin, now you're going to be all night. You're going to be at these races. Let me put you on hold real quick. We got some numbers to give out here. We just had some states close here. Then we'll get back to Corbin Carson here. But right now, Trump is at 137. Harris is at 99. The popular vote is very, very close. 52% for Trump, 46.2% for Harris. But California has not been counted yet or closed yet. That's 54 electoral votes. New York is 28. So you can always add 82 to her total. And if you do that, she is currently at 181. Donald Trump, 137. And real quickly, the big states, Florida called for Donald Trump. Georgia, 52% for Donald Trump right now. Kamala Harris, 52% in Michigan. She's up 52% in Michigan. Donald Trump in North Carolina is up. And in Pennsylvania, Kamala Harris has, with 18% reporting, 60% of the vote for Kamala Harris. That is huge. I know it's early, but still, that is a big number. Mo Kelly joins us. Mo, you've been following these numbers all night. What do you see? What do you feel? What do you know?
This is like the appetizer before the meal. I always say, if you follow sports, here's a good sports analogy. A series doesn't turn until someone wins on someone else's home court, wins an away game. Sure. At this point, it's been chalk. The states that have been won have, by and large, been expected to be won by that Harris or Trump. When we get a state, Georgia, you could say, possibly was a toss-up, but I didn't think it really was. When we get a state that is supposed to go one way and it goes the other way, then it will probably tell us our eventual winner. From what I see, Harris has to win North Carolina. That's the one that I'm looking at, which is probably going to be a decider.
Right. North Carolina right now with 40% reporting and 16 electoral votes. Donald Trump with 51, almost 52%. Kamala Harris with 47%. I think another big state, I think we all agree, is Pennsylvania. I think whoever wins Pennsylvania.
But we won't find that one out tonight.
No. And right now, Kamala Harris is up by nearly 200,000 votes, 60% to 38%. And that's a big deal. Even though there's just 18% reporting, that's a big deal. If you look at the three states that Kamala Harris and or Donald Trump really are focused on, Wisconsin, nothing reported. Michigan, 10% reporting. Kamala Harris up by 40,000 votes. And then, as we said, Pennsylvania, where she's up by 250,000 votes. So it'll be interesting to see what happens as these states, as we move west and they close and we get these bigger numbers. But so far, the only real surprise is how many votes Donald Trump won by in Florida. And it's amazing that Florida, the big, huge state of Florida, has already counted 93% of their votes.
Well, that goes back to 2000. And Mark, I know you know about this. With 2000, because of what happened in Florida with Bush v. Gore, they changed the law so they could count all their mail-in and early balloting in advance. So that's why we get the returns from Florida almost immediately when the polls close.
Why doesn't every state do that?
Well, I mean, why doesn't every state do a lot of things? I mean, all the states are so individual. That's the idea. I mean, that's one reason why the election can't really be hacked, because you have 50 different versions of vote,
Right.
Go
ahead, Mark.
I was just going to ask, because Tim and I were talking before about Florida and the fact that it's gone for Trump, and it just seemed to have gone to the right. I mean, did you expect that, Mo, as you saw the Florida returns? Just seemed that state has now moved even further right.
It doesn't surprise me at all, because the Democrats haven't won a statewide election, I think, since Obama. Closest one, I think they had a senator in, I think, the mid 2010s who won a statewide election, but it hasn't gone the Democrats' way in any recent history. So as far as I'm concerned, this is more confirmation that it's moving more right. I'm less surprised by that than anything else.
Well, just over 10 million votes counted already, Donald Trump has nearly 6 million votes, 56.2% to 42.9%. So a big difference in Florida. All right, Texas, we'll give you Texas numbers as soon as we get them. And then in the next hour or two, actually by 8 o'clock, you're going to see Washington, Oregon, Nevada, Idaho, Montana, Utah, Arizona, and then later on Alaska and Hawaii. And we will be here all night long. Mo Kelly promised to go till 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning if he has to get us these numbers.
I'll be here.
Ding dong with you. It's Conway Show. Mark Thompson's here. Mo Kelly's with us. All the numbers tonight right here on KFI AM 640.
You're listening to Tim Conway Jr. on demand from KFI AM 640.
It's Conway Show. Mark Thompson's here. It's Tuesday. Mo Kelly joins us as well as we look at all the numbers. Mo Kelly, during the commercial break, you said you had your eye on two states. One of them, I think, was Ohio, and the other one was North Carolina?
North Carolina and Ohio. In the past 10 minutes or so, Donald Trump has opened up his lead in Ohio. And I was talking to Mark Thompson saying that I use this as an overlay of the 2020 map. So if Harris were to lose a state that Biden won in 2020, presumably she has to replace that state with some other state. So we know that Biden won Georgia in 2020. It looks like Trump is going to win Georgia in 2024. So for Harris to have any chance, she's going to need to replace that state or those 16 electoral college votes, which would be North Carolina, presumably.
Okay. All right. And we still have, California, Oregon, and Washington, which are always going heavily towards Democrats. They have not closed, and we have no numbers coming in from anybody.
But because you mentioned the West, Tim, Mo, what do you think might, if Harris could carry a bit of the West, might that make up the gap that she...
Mathematically, it's possible, and that's why it goes down to Pennsylvania, but her pathway, as they say, narrows considerably if she were to lose Nevada or Arizona. We know Biden carried Arizona in 2020, so Harris would have to find some other state if she were to lose Arizona in 2024. It gets more and more difficult. In other words, every state that Donald Trump could presumably win that Biden won, she has to replace it. And after a certain point, you run out of places where you can find those states. Now, there was a possibility. There was some belief that there might be a surprise in Iowa. I don't personally believe that, but that's been put out there. And Nevada's going to loom large as well. But as it gets later in the night, we'll see how large Pennsylvania is going to be. But it looks like it's going to be huge.
Well, in Iowa, 9% reporting, and Kamala Harris has an 18-point lead. 58% to 40% with a 30,000 vote lead, but it's extremely
so early. Yeah.
Wisconsin with 4% reporting, very low number. Donald Trump up 57 to 40%, but still, that you have no idea where the number came from. But here's something, and again, I'm not a Northeast guy when it comes to elections. Has Maine always been Democrat, or has Maine flipped back and forth? I don't know.
Well, it has been split. It's kind of funky what they do in Maine, but I think it trends more progressive than Republican.
They used to say, there was a saying that back in the old days, as goes Maine, so goes the nation. And then Maine started to get out of step with the nation, and only Vermont and Maine vote. And then they changed it to as goes Maine, so goes Vermont. Yeah. So I think it's not necessarily a bellwether state.
It is interesting. Mark pointed this out during the commercial break, how close this thing is. It's unbelievable. But usually by 6:30, 7 o'clock in California, by 9:30, 10 o'clock on the East Coast, you have some idea of the direction it's going in, and I have no idea.
Yeah, you get a hint somewhere. That's why I listen with interest as to Mo looking at the tea leaves this early, because I feel as though he makes a good argument for the things we should be focusing on, and the polls have closed in states where we can focus and get maybe some hint.
Well, here's something else I think people should caution themselves with these early totals. Usually they're going to come from the smaller counties, and those are probably not as densely populated. If you talk about a state like a Wisconsin, or you talk about a state like a Georgia, in other words, the urban centers are going to come later in the evening because there are more votes to be tabulated. So if you're talking about one of the larger counties in Georgia, you may not see that for another hour or so. And it may have a wide swing, and that throws a lot of people off. They think, wait a minute, Trump was up 15 points and now he's only up 4 points. That's usually why.
Well, Pennsylvania's reporting 23%. They've counted 23% of the vote, which is not a small number. It's a quarter of all the votes. And Kamala Harris is up by 16 percentage points, 935,000 to 682,000, up by nearly 240,000 votes. That's a lot for Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania is such a weird state, though, because it's really...
Well, you're weird.
Yeah,
how about that?
The cities tend to go Democrat, and, of course, that wide area, the rural Pennsylvania in between, tends to go Republican, and that's how you end up in the deadlock that we're in.
And I've noticed, a lot of these numbers are coming from Google. Google has their own, voting results, and every network is calling it different. Fox has Trump at 195 in Electoral College, Harris at 113. Google has 177 for Trump, 99 for Harris, and CNN has 154 for Trump and 53 for Harris. So CNN is playing it very, very cautiously. Fox is playing it, very, very loosely, and I think Google is right down the middle here.
2020 changed, I guess, the approach as far as calling these races. It's not about being first. It's about being accurate.
Right.
And you don't want to call it and then have to take it back later on. Not in today's environment.
Yeah. And Fox with Arizona, even though they ultimately got it right, when they called Arizona so quickly, there was a lot of backlash on that. Lots and lots of backlash. So here's where we stand right now. According to Google, it's just gone up to 178. So Donald Trump, 178, leading in North Carolina, leading in Georgia, leading in Virginia with 53% of the vote counted by a very slim margin in Virginia. 49.6% to 48.7%. There's only a difference of less than 30,000 votes in Virginia. So we'll keep an eye on that. That's a really important state. Wisconsin, again, only 7% reporting, and Minnesota only 1% reporting. So not much there. But it was interesting. There was a vote. There was a poll that came out of Iowa that had Kamala Harris up by 5, 6, or 7 points from the Des Moines Register.
Right. That was that single poll. I call it an outlier because all the other polls had shown Trump comfortably winning, I'll say 4 or 5 percentage points. But this one particular poll has been more accurate than the other polls in previous elections. And that's why some people have given it some credence as far as it might pretend that Harris has a chance in Iowa. I'm not quite there yet, but I understand why it's being said.
So even though we're not going to find out, we most likely will not find out who's going to be the winner tonight. Do you think that both the Harris camp and the Trump camp will have speeches at the end of the night?
Yeah, but they'll be vastly different. Right? I expect Donald Trump to declare victory, let's be honest, and I expect Kamala Harris to say something along the lines of we're going to count every vote.
Every vote counts.
Yeah,
right.
And we're going to wait
count every vote
until we get far. And let's not forget, if there are close states, some of them have mandatory recounts if it's within like 3 points or something like that. So there are things which have nothing to do with the candidates, have nothing to do with the votes per se. Just going back to what Mark was saying, you have 50 different, actually more than 50 when you count Washington, D.C., all these different contests and how they count the votes and the processes for mail-in ballots. And it's unrealistic to think that it would be settled tonight unless there is a large shift of states which go one candidate's way that we didn't see coming.
All right. So we have Arizona closing at 7 o'clock, our time. Utah closing at 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, Idaho, 7 o'clock, Montana, and then you got the West Coast. Washington, 8 o'clock, Oregon, 8 o'clock, California, 8 p.m., and then Alaska at 10 p.m. our time, and Hawaii at 9 p.m. our time. So lots more to cover, a lot of local races. We'll come back and talk about the local races as well. But the one problem with talking about the local races, I mean, Carson did a great job in Orange County talking about the congressional races, but we don't know anything until
we don't want to talk
8 or 8:30.
Right, the polls are still open.
That's right. Yeah. We will keep an eye on the national numbers when we come back. Right now, CNN has Trump at 154, Kamala Harris at 53, Fox has it 195, 117 Trump, and then Google has it 178 to 99 Harris, but they've not counted New York or California, which is 82 electoral votes going towards Harris, and those haven't been calculated into the final number yet. So we will keep it going. We're live on KFI. It's Conway Thompson and Mo Kelly live here on KFI AM 640.
You're listening to Tim Conway Jr. on demand from KFI AM 640.
KFI AM 640. It's Conway Show. Mark Thompson's here. Mo Kelly's with us. We're going to talk to Michael Monks here in a second. But first, according to Google and their results here, Harris 99 with 46.6% of the popular vote. Donald Trump 178 in the Electoral College with 52.2% of the vote. Still very early. Georgia is leaning towards Donald Trump. So is North Carolina and Virginia. But again, very early. And Michael Monks is, before we get to Michael Monks, any of you guys keeping an eye on something interesting here? Mo Kelly, tell me something I don't know.
I don't know what you do or don't know, but I see that Fox News has called Colorado for VP Harris, and that was a state that I thought that was going to be a little bit more competitive than it was. At this point, they called it, interestingly enough, with only 35% of the vote in, and Harris was up 9 percentage points. The only reason I say that is because I always think about the neighboring states, whether Utah could be more in play, how competitive New Mexico is going to be, Arizona, and so forth. So I was looking at Colorado as far as whether it's going to portend anything else in that region.
And Wyoming is just closed. No information coming out. 0% reporting. Maybe nobody voted. That's possible.
And it's weird because Fox called Wyoming for Donald Trump
with 0% reporting.
Yeah, so I don't know.
That's crazy. South Dakota, 3% reporting, 69% for Trump. North Dakota, 9% reporting, and 74.5% for Donald Trump.
Yeah, I mean, some of these, like the ones you just mentioned, are kind of academic. I mean, we just know that they're going to go for Trump.
Like California as well.
Is academic for the Dems,
right.
yeah.
All right, let's talk to
on the presidential race.
That's right. Michael Monks is with us. He's following some local issues and local races here. We got the sales tax increase, Measure A in Los Angeles, also Prop 36. The make crime illegal again, which is an interesting idea. Michael, what do you say? What do you know, bub?
Hey, good evening, guys. Enjoying listening to you to take my mind off of the craziness that's going on. And yeah, let's focus a little bit on what's happening locally, because it's easy to get swept up in all the craziness nationally, but we cast ballots here at the local level as well. And some big ticket items are on the agenda here as well.
And what do you think? I mean, obviously there are no results in yet, but when you were out there, I know you were out there all day. Do you get a feel that Proposition 36 is as popular as it is locally here as it is statewide? Statewide, is it 73% voting for it?
For sure. In fact, I had attended a few different organizational efforts to sway voters one way or the other in the weeks leading up to the election. And there really wasn't a lot of enthusiasm to vote against this proposition. So we are seeing overwhelming support for that. It's also indicated by the polls, like you just said. It's expected, if that is any indication, that this will not just be approved by voters in California and even here in LA County, but it will be approved overwhelmingly. And I think that speaks a lot to what we're experiencing here in California. It seems as though with that, coupled with the district attorney's races, that there are folks here who are kind of tired of what they're seeing. It may not be reflected in statistics, right? But the vibes are off for folks when it comes to crime, and they're clearly wanting to see a change.
And Michael Monks is with us in the newsroom here. LA Measure A, is that a city or is that a county?
That's county. And okay. This is what they're asking you to do. Now, we already in LA County pay a 1/4 cent sales tax to support homeless efforts, and we have been doing that for some number of years. That, however, was set to expire in 2027. It was approved by voters about 7 years ago, and it had an expiration date. The county is asking voters to not renew that. They want to double it and keep it in perpetuity. So it would be a 1/2 cent sales tax supporting homeless and related efforts across the county. And it would have no expiration date unless a ballot measure was put on by voters somewhere down the road.
So they're going to double it and it's going to be on forever.
Exactly. They expect it to get about $1 billion for their efforts against homelessness. There has been a lot of mail in support of this, a lot of large nonprofits in support of this, like the United Way, who had their name on some of the mailers that were coming out, suggesting that if this thing isn't passed, a lot of homeless people who have been housed will be back on the streets. So the polling on this shows right at about 50% support, according to the poll in the LA Times. And folks who had committed to voting against it were only at about 34%, with the remainder in that poll undecided. So probably good news for folks in support of it, but we'll see once all the votes are counted.
So in this county of Los Angeles, we're looking at nearly an 11% sales tax on everything you buy.
It's going to be hitting people right at the cash register. And so coupled with inflation and the general expensive cost of living in California anyway, this is just another piece to add on to that. On that CVS receipt just got longer.
Yeah. Well, it is amazing, when you buy something at Home Depot or Lowe's or Walmart, Target, and you buy $100 worth of groceries and back to school stuff, and then it comes out to $111. It does irritate the hell out of a lot of people.
It certainly does. And by the way, the tax is not the only thing that could get bigger in LA County because of voters' decisions. They are also asking for the government itself to be bigger with Measure G. So right now there are 5 county supervisors that govern the entirety of LA County. They each represent about 2 million people. That's more than some governors in across the country. And so what Measure G would do, if approved, we'd have 9 county supervisors, and on top of that, a countywide executive. So an elected executive, like a county mayor.
Right.
And that would go into effect in 2032 if that's approved by voters. Now, the supporters at the county office, the county building, they say they're going to be able to do this without raising taxes and to do it within the confines of the current budget, though.
Does anyone believe that?
Well, not the opponents of it, certainly.
All right, buddy, I appreciate you chiming in. We'll talk to you again soon.
I hope so.
Okay, all right. Michael Monk's in the KFI newsroom. Has anything moved here? I know CNN is reporting 154 for Donald Trump, 81 for Harris. Google has it 178 for Trump and 99 for Harris. Mo, I know you keep an eye on Georgia, North Carolina, and Virginia. Any more?
And I want to go back to Colorado for this reason,
Sure.
and it's not good news for Harris supporters. Right now, they call the state for her, but she's only up like maybe 10 percentage points. But she's running behind where Joe Biden was in 2020 by about 7 points. And if that holds true, then that probably is not good news for Arizona if you're a Harris supporter. And it just seems like nationally she's running behind where Joe Biden was, and 2020 was close enough as it was over those 4 states. If you talk about Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, and Wisconsin. And so if everything were to hold true from 2020 to 2024, then Harris needs to perform at least as well as Joe Biden if she were to have any real chance of winning. Right now, she is running behind Joe Biden.
Virginia is still very close with 58% reporting. North Carolina, 63% reporting, and Donald Trump's up by 165,000 votes. But Georgia has just gone up to 77% reporting. And again, that's a state that Joe Biden won in
Correct.
2020.
Correct.
And Donald Trump is ahead by not only about 200,000, a little less than 200,000 votes at 77% reporting. So that might be a state that's called soon if they can, get a better feel of what's going on there.
And where does Harris get those votes in the state that Tim's talking about, which is Georgia? I mean, with the Fulton County vote already in, I don't know where they're
Fulton and DeKalb County are already in, so those are the major urban centers. So it's unlikely that she's going to be able to come from behind in any large degree in that state, unless I'm missing a large county.
Well, I think, Savannah has grown over the last 4 years, and that's a fairly blue county. And so, all Atlanta and all the surrounding counties around Atlanta, Athens, Augusta, and Macomb, if those are all in, and it looks like they are, the only ones that I'm seeing missing then are ones that were all already in the last election red.
Right, exactly.
So that might be a state that is called soon. And as Mo had pointed out, if Kamala Harris loses that, she's got to replace that with another state with at least 16 electoral votes. And she's going to have to find that state, whether it's Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, or maybe Minnesota. But the Iowa was a real head scratcher with a poll coming out late on Sunday with Kamala Harris up by 6 percentage points in a poll that has been very accurate in the past. And so
Correct.
With 10% reporting in Iowa, Kamala Harris is up by 30,000 votes, 54% to 44%. So up by 10 percentage points in Iowa. That is remarkable. That's a state that everyone thought Donald Trump would just, roll over and win it by this time. And it's not even close. It's going the opposite. So we wait and we see. We continue here on KFI. Mo Kelly, Conway, Thompson.
You're listening to Tim Conway Jr. on demand from KFI AM 640.
KFI AM 640. Conway Show. Mark Thompson's here. Mo Kelly's here. And this is usually, in 10 minutes, the start of Mo Kelly Show. We're going to stay till 8. Mo Kelly taking on after that. and we will be here as long as numbers keep coming in. And so far, another state has just been called for Donald Trump. He's up to 188. They've just given him Wyoming, which is not unusual. New Mexico has 19% reporting, and literally a 2,000 vote difference between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. Mo Kelly, what are you keeping an eye on? You do more with politics? I see you on TV on Mark Thompson's show, and also on the cable. What's the cable news station that you're on?
Spectrum.
Spectrum. Yes. How often are you on Spectrum?
It ebbs and flows, but this week I'll be on 25 times or something ridiculous.
Okay.
I couldn't even book him this week. He's so busy.
I started off on Spectrum this morning, and I'll be there tomorrow morning. So it's going to be a very, very short night of sleep for me.
Spectrum is my default. When I turn my TV on, the Spectrum News comes on immediately. And so that was kind of cool. All right. So what do you keep an eye on here? What do you, I know Colorado was a big deal. I'm
looking at all these states with respect to what happened in 2020. You mentioned New Mexico, and Joe Biden won New Mexico by 11 percentage points. And if Kamala Harris doesn't also win the state and win it by a sizable margin, it probably says that the states around it are in jeopardy for her, and she's not performing as well as Joe Biden, and it would stand to reason that her electoral college total will be reflective of that.
Kansas, which you would think is a very bright red state, is very close. Donald Trump is literally up by less than 3 percentage points. Exactly 3 percentage points. 361,000, 340,000. So he's up by 21,000 votes with 51% reporting already.
But that just really may be the votes that they've counted, Tim, because he's really expected to win that state, I think, based on all polling.
I know, but I'm just saying it's unusual that 51% is already counted, and that's not a 60-30 state by now. I mean, because I would, if there's one state in the union that you think of as bright red, it's Kansas, and I know that.
So they've got the counties around Topeka and Wichita; those are blue. Okay, and so maybe they're counting those first. They're populous, right? So there are a lot of people there, but the rest of the state is, ruby red.
Right. And look, if you watch I know you guys are both NFL fans. When you watch, and I know that's in, it's Kansas City, Missouri, not Kansas City, Kansas. But when you watch a Kansas City Chiefs game, it's 1978. It's the tomahawk, it's the chant, it's the Chiefs. They've not gotten the message that the country has moved on from that.
Well, Missouri is a red state, so it's not like it's going to be electorally all that different than Kansas, the state.
Right. All right. We have local issues as well. Steve Gregory is out, and he is going to be reporting at some point with the LA DA's race, and he'll have numbers. I imagine that as soon as California, as soon as we reach 8:00 in an hour and 3 minutes or so, almost exactly an hour and 3 minutes, they will have some indication of what's going on in Los Angeles and in the city of LA, the county of Los Angeles, and also the state of California when it comes to the national numbers. We have got to take a small break. The latest, though, CNN has it Kamala Harris 81, Donald Trump 162. Fox has it 117 to Harris, 195 for Donald Trump. And then Google has it 99 for Harris and 188 for Donald Trump. In the past, we got about 30 seconds here, Mo and Mark. In the past, though, I've noticed that almost all of these networks, Fox, CNN, NBC, ABC, CBS, New York Times, LA Times, used to be within 1 or 2 electoral points from each other. Now they're wildly different.
Well, you were saying something about that earlier, Mo. You just feel that
there's
there's
hesitancy.
Yeah.
You just don't want to get too far out in front of it. It used to be the polls would close and you'd have an instant projection.
Right.
You would just say, okay, the polls will close. We're projecting New Jersey for Michael Dukakis or something like that. You don't see that anymore.
Yeah. And it is, it's wild also how many people, I think, Mark, you were pointing this out, how many people in Florida I mean, the difference between the vote in Florida, 6 million to 4.5 or 4.6 million votes. Donald Trump with a 14% lead in Florida with 95% of the vote count.
And we're talking about that before, and you were pointing out that, COVID might have been a big component in changing the vote and changing the politics of Florida.
Yeah. I think John Colbelt said that, but I'll take credit. All right.
I've got to run, but I'm listening.
Right, you're taking off.
I'm listening.
All right, we're counting on you listening on the way home.
I'm scrutinizing
and
while
Crozier.
I listen. All right.
Conway, Mo Kelly is with us. I'll stay for another hour, then Mo takes over.
See a doctor if your election lasts more than 4 hours.
KFI.
And KOST HD2.
Los Angeles, Orange County.
Live every